is climate change is an existential threat for humankind. What science has forecast is happening. Last year, Pakistan suffered superb floods. This year will be the world's hottest year in recorded history. The global stocktake is another grim wake-up call. This must be This year will be the world's hottest year in recorded history. The global stocktake is another grim wake-up call. This must be a call of action. Excellencies, at COP26 in Glasgow, we increased our ambition, presenting our revised nationally determined contributions with the target of 50% overall reduction in projected emissions by 2030. This year, Pakistan presented a comprehensive national adaptation plan and has also launched an innovative Living Indus initiative that brings together our care for climate and for nature. And we will be presenting our first biennial update report during this COP. Last year, we led the endeavor to craft an agreement on establishing a global loss and damage fund. This year, we worked to activate an adequately financed loss and damage fund and its funding arrangements. It is critical that under UAE's leadership, COP28 also activates the means of implementation, that is climate finance, technology transfer, and capacity building for developing countries, based on the established principle of equity and common but differentiated responsibilities. Climate justice demands that the developing countries be enabled to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals even as they contribute to climate objectives. The provision of sufficient, additional, predictable, grant-based climate finance by developed countries is imperative. The 100 billion commitment for climate finance must be fulfilled. And such finance should not be at the cost of development finance nor add to the already high debt burden of the developing countries. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope the successful conclusion of the global stocktake will also provide a recipe for a global course correction, especially by keeping the 1.5 Celsius degree temperature goal within reach. Developed countries must take the lead in raising global mitigation ambition, commensurate with their economic standing and historical responsibility, and then help developing countries do the same. Finally, we need to achieve global resilience through delivering an ambitious outcome in the form of a framework for the global goal on adaptation, with clear targets and indicators, including regular monitoring of progress. At least half of climate finance must be allocated to adaptation. Excellencies, our expectations from COP28 are high but not unrealistic. Let this COP deliver with actions, not just words. I thank you.
Thank you very much.
निकरा वज़ीर-ए-आज़म अनवर
दुबई में निगरान वज़ीर-ए-आज़म अनवर हक काकर वर्ल्ड क्लाइमेट एक्शन समिट से खिताब कर रहे थे। उन्होंने कहा कि इस वक्त वो ममालिक जहां पर ग्लोबल वार्मिंग मौजूद है उनकी सपोर्ट की ज़रूरत है। उन्होंने कहा कि तमाम ऐसे ममालिक जो इस्तात रखते हैं उन ममालिक को सपोर्ट करें।
Extremes. The notion of implementation and support is a critical element of the global stocktake report, and we are of the firm opinion that this discussion should be at the core of climate change negotiations at COP28. Excellencies, climate change is happening. We are witnessing it ourselves, some on our television screens and some like us in Pakistan firsthand. The critical concern for the developing countries like Pakistan is the recurring natural disasters and consequent adaptation needs in the impacted sectors of water, agriculture, urban resilience, natural capital, and human health. The IPCC's sixth assessment report clearly demonstrates that we are entering into a new normal, an era of cascading effects of climate change in the near future. So we know what's wrong, and science is also telling us unequivocally what we need to do. Then what is the problem? In our context, it is the means of implementation, finance, technology, and capacity building support. Finance is and will always be the key enabler for climate action. Financial needs of developing countries are way more than the unfulfilled US $100 billion pledge. Even to fulfill less than half of their existing nationally determined contributions, they need US $6 trillion by 2030. And developing countries are being told that their NDCs are not ambitious enough. Adaptation needs alone are US $387 billion per year till 2030. With current adaptation finance estimated at around $21 billion, there is a yawning gap. Some goes for loss and damage. Current estimates are around $400 billion annually, and these are expected to soar to US $1 to $2 trillion per year by 2050. Ladies and gentlemen, outcomes of GST at this COP must clearly highlight this enormous gap between the finance mobilized and needs of the developing countries. It should also obligate the developed countries to urgently rectify shortfalls in their finance commitments under the Paris Agreement. Unlocking scaled up and improved financial support that would enable developing countries to contribute in bridging the implementation gaps in their mitigation and adaptation action. Moving forward, we believe outcomes of the GST are well timed to guide the critical discussion in 2024 on setting the post-2025 new collective quantified goal on finance commensurate with the needs of developing countries. It is also imperative that the GST should strengthen effectiveness of the technology mechanism in scaling up, developing, and transfer of proven climate capacity building for developing countries. The need for reform of the international financial architecture also require sharper focus. Excellencies, regarding the technology transfer, we propose to focus on key and high-emitting sectors with joint indicators, functioning solutions, time frames, and enabling conditions needed to put in place green technologies. Ladies and gentlemen, on capacity building, we require scale-up support to developing countries and greater coherence and coordination across the United Nations system. To attract the required public and private investment, developing countries must be provided capacity building support to develop appropriate instruments and in creating pipelines of bankable projects for adaptation and mitigation, and particularly for sustainable infrastructure projects. Further, it is about time we also harness the capacities of the private sectors for climate actions. I hope our deliberations here and throughout the COP can result in an ambitious outcome on the means of implementation, which is equitable and responsive to the needs of developing countries. I thank you.
और अमल दरामद से मुतालिक आला सतह गोल मेज़ कॉन्फ्रेंस से खिताब जारी था। उन्होंने कहा है कि आपको बताएं कि उन्होंने कहा कि ग्लोबल क्लाइमेट से निपटने के लिए हमें एक तखमीने की ज़रूरत है, $4 अरब हमें दरकार होंगे। इसके अलावा मौसमियाती चैलेंजेस से निपटने के लिए ट्रांसफ़र ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी और इस्तेदाद कार में इजाफे पर भी गौर किया जा रहा है। दुबई में निगरान वज़ीर आज़म अनवारुल हक काकड़ का ग्लोबल स्टॉक टेक और अमल दरामद से मुतालिक आला सतह गोल मेज कॉन्फ्रेंस जारी थी और वज़ीर आज़म ने इस हवाले से कहा कि COP28 के कामयाब इनेकाद पर UAE की क़यादत को मुबारकबाद पेश करता हूँ। हमने आइंदा आने वाली नस्लों के लिए कुर्राए अर्ज़ को महफूज बनाना है। मौसमियाती तब्दीली एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है जिसे निमटने की ज़रूरत है। मौसमियाती तब्दीली से मुतासरा तरक्की पजीर मुल्कों को मुख्तलिफ मसाइल का सामना करना पड़ रहा है। मौसमियाती तब्दीली से पानी की फराहमी, ज़राअत और इंसानी सेहत मुतासिर हो रही है।
अभी सब्सक्राइब करें ताकि कोई खबर रह न जाए।